What's up, guys? It's Laura from Reading in Bed here today, and I'm going to tell you about the first 6 books that I've read in 2016. So this year I am reading 35 books. That is a small number of books for me, and if you want to know more about why I'm limiting to only 35, I will link that down below. So I should be able to do a couple of these videos this year just telling you about what I've read so far. And this year I started with something a little different for me. This was an ebook, obviously. It's called Asking for It by Lila Pace. This is an erotic novel. It was recommended to me on a video by Book Riot, and I'll link that down below as well. So as you can see, even from the cover, you can kind of tell this isn't maybe your typical erotic novel. The cover art is a little more artsy than you might usually find in these types of books. And it was different. This book it explores rape fantasies, which if you didn't know that they're very common, you will know by the time you finish because it's mentioned about 100 times. The main character is a rape survivor who has very kind of overwhelming and persistent rape fantasies, and she finds a guy to help her work through that. Let's put it that way. I did actually like this book. It was a little more literary, I guess you could say, than your average erotica read, and it is the first in a trilogy. I'm not sure if I'll continue. There were a lot of, the amount of exposition and explanation was a bit much. I think you have to kind of leave some of that up to the reader, but there's a lot more depth to it than your typical, erotic novella or whatever. So if you are kind of interested in erotica, but with a more literary bent to it, I would definitely recommend Asking for It. So from there, I went in a totally different direction, and I read The Hunter and the Wild Girl by Pauline Holdstock. And this is a review copy that I got from Goose Lane Editions, so thank you for that. And I'm working on a review of this right now. I really love this book. It's kind of a slow burn. It's about a feral child, or really a teenager, I guess, and a reclusive man who ends up meeting her and kind of trying to take care of her, and the townspeople that try to, make her join regular society. But really, it's about grief and the different ways that people deal with grief and loss. It's really beautiful. The writing is what made this book for me. It was just so gorgeous, and there's so many, quotable bits, but I'm going to save those for my review. But this was a really, really great book, and a great cover too. So that was The Hunter and the Wild Girl. The next book I read was from the library, so I'll just, not that you can see it too well, but it was The Outside Circle by Patty LaBoucane Benson and Kelly Mellings. This is a graphic novel, so I'll just read you really quickly the summary here. In this important graphic novel, 2 Aboriginal brothers surrounded by poverty, drug abuse, and gang violence try to overcome centuries of historic trauma in very different ways to bring about positive change in their lives. So there were kind of 2 halves. One half of this graphic novel was the brothers' lives and the violence and eventually the incident that lands the older brother in jail, and then the second half is the older brother in jail, and it's about kind of his healing, and he goes through a very particular program designed for Aboriginal men to kind of heal them from that kind of trauma and get them out of gang life and that kind of thing. So this book I was very torn about because I loved the first half. The second half I didn't love as much because it felt a bit like an advertisement almost for this program, because I know that the authors are involved in this type of programming in prisons, and it came across as almost like a brochure for the program, which is fine, but it wasn't what I was looking for in terms of a fictional, like a graphic novel. And I still haven't found a graphic novel that I love. This one came close. I really love the way they worked in some of the historical details about residential schooling and some of the historical trauma, and they worked it in really original and innovative ways. I wish I had the book here. I could show you some of that. But just for that alone, it's definitely worth picking up. The artwork is really great. And next up, I read a book that everyone seems to be reading now. Maybe it's just, I'm seeing it among the UK bloggers because I think it just came out in the UK. The Vegetarian by Han Kang. Okay, one thing, I didn't notice that there was anything weird about this cover until like weeks after I had read it. I see there's some reflections coming here, but it's flowers, but you look closer, you see like a tongue and a piece of meat, fingers, there's like eyeballs back here. I mean, I was reading it for probably a week or two, didn't notice, so that was really weird. And the book is really weird. You've probably heard all about it on other blogs and stuff. So the only thing I'll say is that I read it rather quickly. I rated it 5 stars without hesitation, although now I am kind of reconsidering because this book hasn't stuck with me the way I thought it would, that usually a 5-star read would. So it may get downgraded to 4 stars. It's still a great book. Read it, pick it up. It's short. Yeah, you won't go wrong. The next book I read was Mislaid by Nell Zink. I love this paperback edition and I'm glad I waited for it. And Nell Zink, yeah, this is another book that, I don't know, I'm not sure about my rating yet. And I've read both of Nell Zink's books, The Wall Creeper and Mislaid. I think I like The Wall Creeper better just because The Wall Creeper is so weird. This book is really weird too. I mean, it's about a lesbian who marries a gay man. They have a child. They have 2 children. The mom leaves with the girl and they decide to pass as black people despite not being black at all. Somehow that goes over okay. It's just, there's a lot of things that aren't explained. Like I talked about in The Outside Circle that I wish the author, in Asking for It, that I wish the author had left some of that up to the reader. Nell Zink leaves a lot up to the reader, so you got to be ready. Like you have to do some work when you're reading these books. So I don't know. I think I rated it 4 stars. I may leave it there. Maybe more like a 3.5. She's got another book coming out later this year called Nicotine, and I can't wait for it. Even when they're not my favorite, they're just like they're such an experience to read. They're so crazy. And the last book I have for you is In Her Shoes by Jennifer Weiner. This is another weird book. Like, you wouldn't think so. You think these books are just kind of chick lit, romances, whatever, a lot of tropes, a lot of predictability, and that's true. But there was a middle section in here that was so bizarre where the kind of fun sister, because this is about 2 sisters, one who's like serious and frumpy, one who's like fun and giggly and kind of crazy. So that crazy sister, there's this whole middle section where she is essentially homeless and she goes to Harvard, like not enrolls, but just goes there, kind of poses as a student and is living in the basement and teaches herself to read, serious literature despite having a learning disability somehow, and it's just really weird. Like, I was surprised by it. I wouldn't say I liked it. I found it really unbelievable and just sort of out of place. You could almost have, you could have the book without that section, because if you watch the movie, that's what they did. They just completely removed that section, and I don't blame them at all. It made for a much tighter story. So that is it. I think that is my 6 books that I've read 6 or 7 books that I've read so far this year, and right now I am still working on Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood. I got some water damage on the cover, which is just fantastic considering this is a signed copy. But I'll be finished that really soon, so I guess I'll tell you about that in my next wrap-up. Thanks for watching.